Internet, what is up? This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Unity Tactical. Unity Tactical for all things weapon-centric. Go to their page, unitytactical.com. Check them out. They have that new Axon switch for all of your tactical illumination, runs your light, runs your laser, weapon-mounted laser. The newest thing that they're going to drop sometime this year that they released at SHOT Show is their new FTC 4-power magnifier. So if you're one of those fellas like me that enjoys running a flip-up magnifier on a red dot sight on a short gun, they've got a new magnifier, and it's 4-power. It's the size of everybody else's 3-power. So you're getting some extra magnification. It's got an aluminum body on it, so it's super lightweight. It looks like it's going to be a great piece of gear. We're waiting to get our hands on one to do some field testing and evaluation on it. So look forward to that upcoming video on our YouTube channel. But check out unitytactical.com. Okay, let's get into this week's guest of the podcast. We recorded this at SHOT Show. And without further ado, here's our good friend, Todd Fairbairn from OTTE Gear.
Things are getting tougher when you can't get the thumb off the bottom of the barrel. Wide open, roar my future now. Looking fucking new. All I know is that I don't know. All I know is that I don't know nothing. All I know is that I don't know. All I know is that I don't know nothing.
All right. Well, if you're,
I've been doing this for a minute, so I'm versed. I can mix it up. And we'll still be friends when you leave here.
All right, that's good to know. Yeah, so. I'm just wondering what the internet's going to happen.
I'm going to
get some fireballs thrown at me.
Here's my thing with the internet. Fuck them. And do you know why? Because you will never make every single person happy. And you know what my audience they tune in because they know what they've signed up for and they like it.
Right.
They're here because they like it. And a lot of my audience, I've had a lot of people message me and they're like, you know what, dude, I don't agree with you on that one point or that one podcast, but I love, all your other stuff. So I'm going to keep tuning in and I've had really good interactions with my listeners, in social media and DM'd and, we go back and forth and, there's sometimes the water gets a little rough, but it always ends up good. But you will never make every single person on the internet happy. There's always going to be somebody that's going to criticize. There's always going to be somebody that has something negative to say. I mean, social media unfortunately is it's a cesspool of just people sometimes that are just super negative and they don't have any direction in their own life and they hate their life and they just want to lash out and be trolls and just create drama.
Yeah, I wonder. I see some of these comments these people are writing on some of the stuff that seems pretty cut and dry and basic, and you're like, man, where do these people come from? Mm-hmm. What planet are they from? Right. It's it's nuts.
It is nuts.
I'm like, guys, relax. You don't have a life. You need a job. You need a girlfriend. You need to get laid. Yeah. Something needs to change. Yeah. Go take a walk, man.
Yep.
Take a deep breath.
I agree with you. Yeah, and you're exactly right. Exactly right. So, you always get the most, I find it funny because I always get the most harsh, criticism or I get the most trolling from accounts that have no profile photo, have 3 followers and 0 posts.
Is that even a real human being?
And no bio. Well, I mean, in some cases it could be a bot. In some cases it's usually somebody who just doesn't want any skin in the game and just wants to troll and talk shit.
Right.
Or I'll other profiles or accounts that I've seen where they'll put up a profile picture and it'll be Bone Frog Operator 69 and it's some fucking 16-year-old kid living in his mom's basement and he has a bone frog on his profile picture and then has all pictures of fucking all of his love of all of his Navy SEAL fanboy shit all over his page and I'm just how old are you? I've had kids straight up I've asked them, I've been they have these just wild, ferocious, crazy opinions and I'm like, hey, can I ask you a question? How old are you? 16. I'm like, okay, thank you for clarifying that for me. So basically jack shit. So yeah. But yeah, the internet's an interesting place. So I just choose to do my thing, follow my path, stay true to myself and my truth, and still be a good student and still be open and listen to what other people have to say and try and engage them in a way that's positive, and both of us can get something out of. But a lot of times, that's not a reciprocated thing. I will give I will extend objectivity. I basically meet people where they're at.
Right.
If you come at me super hard and you're a cocksucker, I will meet you exactly right there and we will tangle and you will lose. Because I'm really good at it. At this point in the game, like 2 years in, I'm really good at shit talking on the internet. So like I've mastered the art of it. So I will meet you where you're at. If you're cool and you're like, hey, I disagree with you. Here's why. Here's the things that I think. Here's the data that backs up my position on this. Like here's where I pull my information from. Here's the sources. I'll be objective and I will extend objectivity and I will take a look at what your, perspective is. But
Right.
if you have no credible sources to support your position other than like some stupid scientific wild ass guessing that you've done, then I don't give a fuck.
I was talking with Eric Graves from Soldier Systems, and we were talking
Great
about
dude,
some of the comments that he gets on some of his posts.
Oh God, I've been on his pages I check his page almost every day, and so I've seen some of the fucking craziness that goes on in his comments section.
It's absolutely bananas.
Yeah.
And then he'll run across the guys who post that shit.
Yeah.
And Eric will be like, "You're that dude," and he'll kind of catch them flat-footed, and they're so like nice to him. They don't dig in and they don't engage with him. And I'm like, man, when you're face to face, you're not throwing these grenades at anybody, and you're not, you're not trying to be an asshole, and you don't have the cover of the internet. It's like you have to be a human being talking to another human being, and it's a totally different game.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Tyson has this great quote where he's like, "I can tell all of you have like been on social media too long and haven't got punched in the face for the shit talk." So, or something to that effect. So, and I agree with him. Like, my rule of thumb is like, I will not say anything to anyone that I wouldn't say to their face.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
if I'm going hard at you, it's because I would say that to your face. And he's seen me like peel some faces off, like face to face. Like I've been face to face with some humans, and I have no problem like telling them exactly what the fuck I think, just like I would anywhere else, So like that's my rule of thumb. If I won't say anything to anyone that I wouldn't say to their face. So if I'm coming hard at you, I will. If I'm saying it hard in social media, I will certainly say it hard to your face if I run into you.
So you're not two-faced, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I like authenticity. So
That's a good way to be.
yeah. So here we are, Vegas. It's 2024. Can you believe how fast time goes by?
No, I can't.
Yeah.
My birthday's in 2 days, so.
Oh Jesus.
I know.
Okay. Well, how old are you gonna be?
I will be 55.
Oh my
on
God.
Saturday. Yeah.
55. Okay. Well, you're still doing pretty good for 55. I see that you still got the hipster like Mr. Rogers outfit going on here. Like, and you've been like that since I've known you. Like your style really hasn't changed up a lot. Like you've been doing like the Beastie Boy, like you look like you're straight out of a Beastie Boy video, and you have like been like that since I've known you, which has been like, how long have we known each other? It's like 10.
Well,
when did this happened? 12.
I think you
10,000?
first came by our booth at SHOT Show. It must have been like 07?
Yeah.
08?
Yeah.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, it was.
Because we did all that shit in 11, and then I knew you for years before that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 2007, I think, is when I
Yeah.
first came to your booth, and we struck up we had a great conversation.
Yeah. You helped me pack the booth up. I was there with
did.
like a couple of guys, and I had to pack all these boxes. And I think it was either you and your brother and another buddy.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, come on, let's go.
Yeah, we helped out.
Pack that shit up. I was
Yeah.
like, dude, you're a pretty solid guy.
Yeah. I mean, I helped since I've been in the industry. Like, this is my 20th year at the show. Surefire brought me here in 04 because I just had good connects with that company. Like, I was really good friends with Barry Duke, who's the director of suppressors over there. And, like, he didn't obviously used to be that dude. He used to work on the Surefire Institute side and, like, do training. Is how he got started in the company. Somehow I think he was working for OpSync suppressors too on the side. So he's doing training stuff with Surefire and then was doing stuff with OpSync. And so I knew him like way back, like late 90s.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I got involved with them and had good connects to that company. And then,
Your business card said Surefire. I do remember that.
Yeah. I was consulting with them for like, that's what I did when I got off active duty. But I was kind of dabbling and doing a little bit of stuff with them prior to me getting off active duty. So I was like working on the training side, off duty from my Marine Corps time. I'd go on the weekends and I would train law enforcement and military, like SEALs from Coronado for the Surefire Institute for a while through the founders of the institute, which was Dave Maynard The Institute had kind of like shifted and changed when I had come on to it. But Barry, he started the suppressor division. I was doing stuff with Surefire on the weekends, but and that's where I learned a lot of like cool like CQB stuff that saved my life in combat. And I started teaching and was heavily connected with Surefire for a long time. Helped do a lot of development with them, and that was kind of my first consulting gig, getting off active duty. But I came here in 2004 after my first deployment to Iraq.
Right.
You know, mixed it up in Iraq, and for more on that craziness, you can check out the Rudy Reyes episode, like episode 25 will tell you how all that went down. But like, yeah, lots of gunfights, killed some bad guys, came back with gunfighting experience, and used Surefire products that saved my life and were effective, and so they were like, I came back and I gave a whole after action review with like I put together a PowerPoint and came back and like briefed John Matthews, the owner and founder of Surefire, and he was like so stoked on it. He was like, "You're coming to SHOT Show with us," and I had no idea what SHOT Show was. I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what it is," and they brought me to the show, all expenses paid for my travel, paid for my food, put me up in the Venetian.
You must have you've been in heaven as a young.
I was like, dude, this is the shit. I love this. So walked around the show, and then just like, those were my younger years. I think I was like 25 or 26, and we just burned it down. I mean, like all-nighters at the Spearmint Rhino, like just going on full benders at the cry parties, like doing all the crazy shit. And so then the way it worked out with like after I got off active duty, I was contracting, it was just always weird timing to where I'd either just gotten back from deployment or I was getting ready to leave after the show to go on deployment. But I was always here in January to come to the show.
Right.
So the only time I have missed a show is when they got shut down for COVID.
Oh, wow.
That's the only show I've missed
in
the last 20 years.
So we do have to thank you because there was a story that you told me that was attached to what you were doing with Surefire that kind of inspired something that we did in the booth that was a little, I don't know, colorful maybe.
Yeah.
So you told us a story one time, and I'm not speaking out of turn or out of place.
Go for it.
But you were telling us how you were deployed with Surefire doing some stuff in Afghanistan, and you were waiting, you got to the base and you were waiting for the unit to come back, and choppers came back and two big operators came out of the helicopter, and there was blood splatter all over their uniform, and they were carrying like a couple of 5-gallon or the 5-gallon buckets that you'd get at a hardware store to mop the floors with, and you look down inside of it and it was like hands. Just severed hands. And I remember that story. I'm like, man, it just went in the back of my brain. I'm like, we got to do something with that. And in 2019, we launched a couple of like fun Poppies of War totes, and we were just for fun. And I went to a Halloween store and I got all of these like fake severed hands.
Oh, dude.
And I'm like, this is the Brian Bishop prop. So we filled it. We filled a couple of tote bags full of severed hands, and we had them at SHOT Show. And people, I remember watching them as they walked by, like, what the hell is this guy thinking, man?
I love it.
What has happened? What is the story behind it? Eric Graves even looked at it. He's like, what the heck, man? And I had to tell him the story, and he's like, all right, whatever. But that story definitely resonated with me when you told me that. I was like, wow, that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, doing BDA on targets and like having to collect DNA is a thing so that you can verify who was there and who wasn't there. So they showed up. I was like there to like work with them and liaise and do things, and they showed up and fresh off the target right at sunrise, and came walking up, and I met their guys like fresh off of a target where they had to rush because the sun was coming up and they had to get the fuck out of Dodge. And so they had to take a quickie saw and like remove some hands to like get the fingerprints and get the DNA. And then I think they had to run CAS on an alternate location that was adjacent to the main target building where they had to drop some bombs, and so they went over there and there was chunks and pieces, and they had to collect some of that too, and so they had to bring it back so that they could do all the forensic DNA to figure out who was there and who wasn't. So
Well, that was another thing that kind of blew my mind too when I found out what we were, doing over there. I mean, that's what I love about SHOT Show is that you meet some phenomenal people that have the most obscure jobs, and you learn things about our country and our government that you had no idea we were up to. And so this one guy was talking about, have you ever heard of genomic mapping? And I'm like, no, what's that? And he was like, well, when everybody in Afghanistan was voting and they got a little thumb prick?
Yeah.
It's like, well, guess what? We got the DNA right there too. So we now have collected DNA for half of that country. So if there's ever something bad that goes wrong, we can find out where that person was, where the DNA is, go to that village and be like, hey, you're related to this guy. And I was like, I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, if they're doing that over there, is that happening over here? Where else are we doing that shit? Like,
yeah, for sure it is.
It was a little spooky.
Yeah, for sure it is. Like, we used to do like this ISO prep cards where they would take our DNA. Like, we would have to, like, same thing, blood sample and then thumbprints, and then, like, I think we had to have like a verification phrase, and then there was like there's photos of us, and they keep all of that stuff in case we they can't identify our body, or we get taken prisoner, and they need to verify that it's us that's actually prisoner. Like, they can do that in various ways. But like, yeah, nowadays it's like with smartphone technology, like, I mean, come on, the fucking facial recognition software to just unlock your phone. Those records are stored someplace, and the government, because of the Patriot Act, got access to all that shit. Like, it was scary for me where, like, coming back into the U.S. just this last trip from Australia, I walked up, and now they don't even have, like you don't even have to talk to anybody unless they want to talk to you. Like, I walked up, they're like, yeah, stand on the footprints, and they had this little camera, and the border control agent, or the immigration agent was like sitting there, and he like looks at the screen, and he looks at me, and he goes, Brian Bishop? And it's just from
no ID, no nothing.
He didn't ask me for my ID. He didn't even look at my passport. He said, hey, stand on those footprints. And I did. And he, like, the camera, like, did the little light twinkled. And then he looked at me and he goes, Brian Bishop? And I was like, yeah. He goes, oh, yeah, come on through.
So was that information collected when you got your driver's license or your passport? Is that the information that they had to back it up? Or
fuck, I don't know. I don't know. I'm on my third passport, and now they have these like little electronic strips. Going through immigration in Australia is pretty cool because they, you're no longer like filling out these little fucking slips of paper anymore.
Right.
Like, you get there, you get off like, you have to go to a kiosk. They have all these kiosks. You scan your. Have you been through it? Have you been through?
And yeah, when I travel internationally.
How long ago was this?
I don't know, a couple of years ago.
Okay, well now, like, you just walk up and you put your passport in this thing, and it scans it, and then it kicks you out this little ticket. And then you take the ticket and you take your passport and you go to this little gate, and there's a camera, and there's a little thing where you stick your ticket in, and it scans your ticket, and then it says step on the footprints and look at the camera, and you do, and it like takes a picture of you, and then it like either opens the gate or it gives a red X. And if it gives you a red X, because I've seen it happen a couple of times, and I saw people at the airport get a red X, and a border control agent comes up, opens the gate, gets that person, and they go off to secondary or wherever they go to get like further screening. So yeah, but everything's like pretty much automated now, and I'm like, oh man, like it's just crazy what technology is doing. And like, I mean, they have all of our biometric. Apple has, if you have an iPhone, Apple has all your biometric data, because you used to be able to open your thumb with a thumbprint.
Right.
So they have your thumbprint, and now they have your facial recognition.
Yeah, but they don't sell that or do anything with that info.
What the fuck ever. They give that shit to the FBI, no problem. Yeah. All of our data gets sold. All of our data gets sold and mined. Like, I just watched this, friend of mine just turned me on to this documentary called 2000 Mules. Have you seen it?
I've heard about it. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's actually really eye-opening. So, and for a couple reasons. Like, one, like, I think everybody did a good job, like, sweeping the election fraud from the last election underneath the carpet. And, even me to a certain extent, I was like, well, if none of these cases like made it, that like none of these lawsuits made it through court, then maybe it was bullshit.
Right.
So I like kind of backed off I had a real strong position on it at first, because I watched camera footage of like trucks pulling up to polling stations, box trucks opening, boxes of ballots getting thrown out, the roller door on the backside of the, polling station getting open, people pulling those boxes in. Like, I saw that video footage on on TV. So I was like, oh, well, fuck, there's the evidence right there. But then none of these lawsuits were successful. So I was like, oh, maybe that was bullshit. And so I backed off of it. But then I watched this documentary where there was this company called True the Vote.
Okay.
And the guy, it's funny because he's like this bearded dude. And they're like, oh, he's a election analytics professional, whatever the fuck he was, like analytics. He's an election analytics professional or something like that.
What does that job do?
Whatever. He's an NSA dude. Because they magically I mean, that's my theory. I don't have any proof of that internet, but I think that's my, like I've been in this community a lot. I know people, and I think that he was an NSA guy because what they did is they went to a company that collects all of our data off our phones, and they collected all of this data, and then they did this, like they got a petabyte of data.
What's that? How many?
It's like 1,000 terabytes or something like that. It's some ridiculous amount of fucking data. They basically did this, like they set up these parameters for their to study the analytics, because what they had was like cell phone traffic, and they had IP, the IP address, and they had the IMEI codes on these phones, so they could identify who the person is,
Right.
what their IP address is, and then they could track the phone activity
Right.
over this data.
Right.
And what they set these parameters for, like if a person visited these specific nonprofits that were in the area and then went to over 10 different ballot drop boxes, then they would ping and they would get put into a list. And they found in all of the battleground states, under those specific parameters, they found 2,000 people had gone to several nonprofits that were, Democrat affiliated, and then went to different drop boxes. So then once they went to over 10. So my question is like, okay, you're a person, you go to vote. Why are you going to a drop box more than once?
Right.
So they were going 10 times. And so they then pulled the camera footage, and they found these same people going back to these drop boxes over and over again and just cramming ballots. They have video footage of it, and it's all in this documentary. And I'm just like, oh my fuck. It's crazy. So I'm like, yeah, massive election fraud. And then they ran all of the numbers based off the amount of trips that these people did.
Did they ask them, okay, who is this person and what's the wad that you're shoving in there? Or you're like, did they actually get that individual?
Yeah, so those individuals have been like notified by law enforcement that they were, in fact, like, can't do that, don't do that again, or else.
That's the mule part of the 2,000
yeah.
mules.
Yeah. So that's what they call these people, is mules that are going to these places and harvesting these ballots and then taking them and like shoving 10 or 20 at a time or 100 at a time in these ballot boxes.
Yeah.
So they crunched all the numbers, and they found that like in the two biggest battlegrounds, Georgia and Philadelphia had the largest number of them with 1,100 mules in one area.
Oh, interesting.
And they crunched all of the numbers that they had with like ballots, and they were like, yeah, it swayed the election.
Interesting.
So they released all of that data, and it was really interesting. So what was shocking to me, I mean...
And that changed your whole view of
I mean, it didn't change it. It just kind of reinforced where I was originally. But I backed off of it because I'm like, oh, well, lawsuits didn't happen. Maybe it's bullshit. I don't know. I don't have any proof. I've got better things to do than fucking worry about this shit. Now, after watching that documentary, I'm like, oh, shit, that's not great. So...
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, did COVID forever change the way we vote? I mean, it's so easy. I mean, everybody gets a paper ballot now. I mean, I'm on a list now, and they send me a paper ballot in the mail. I don't have to go to a polling place. I kind of want to go to a polling place, but, a month before the election, I get this thing in the mail, and it's so easy. I just take it, put it in the mailbox, I'm done. Like, do they even count my ballot? Is it like, I don't know what happens.
I don't have a problem with that. But I want more accountability. Like, I think, yes, if you want to vote from home, cool, send you a ballot, you fill it out. But then I think there should be like some type of app that's attached to your phone, and maybe a QR code on your ballot where you have to like scan it and confirm in some database, like, hey, I received my ballot, hey, I'm voting. And then when you go to a drop box, it's not a drop box that you can just open like a mailbox and shove shit into. It's an ATM like style machine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Where you go and you like stick your ID in it. It scans your ID, takes a picture of you, does a date and time stamp, and then takes your ballot like a fucking deposit in an ATM machine.
Wait, this is the current way we do
No,
it? Or
that's
this is
the
the way
way-
we should do it?
that's the way we should do
Because
it.
right now it is the
Yeah,
mailbox.
because right now it's the mailbox.
And there's no accountability.
Correct.
There's no double check.
Yep.
Yeah, it is a little loosey-goosey.
Yeah, and
it
if
is
you
a little
don't,
loosey-goosey.
if you don't have an ID, a valid ID, like to scan and get verified, you can't just shove ballots into a box.
Right.
So, the fact that you have to have an ID to like drive a car, or open a bank account, and do all this other shit, but you don't have to have an ID to vote, give me a fucking break.
Yeah, I'm of two minds of that one too, man. It's like I don't think the Constitution says you need a driver's license to vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, then how do you safeguard the election?
that's what I'm two minds of. It's like, okay, I get it, but how do you square that, right? Because there's definitely an argument on both sides. It's like I don't want to have an ID. It's my right. It's not. I don't need an ID, and I'm not driving. I'm not taking an airplane. I don't need it, but I can still vote. It's my right as an American to vote. So yeah, how do you square it? I don't know, man, but something's got to change. So I think there's so much now with social media and what's happening on both sides. There's so much distrust out there. It's like, how do you bring the trust back? There has to be some place we can meet as a country where, both sides feel more comfortable. Obviously the winning side, they're like, no, it's not broken. Don't fix it.
Right.
But
That's what the winning side, no matter who it is always going to say that.
yeah, of course. So that's why, there has to be something that we do as a country and I think, the idea is an interesting one. I think there's definitely something to be said for it.
No, I think I think our way of life is heavily predicated upon reinstalling confidence in the voting process. Like, do we really have a democracy if it's going to get fucked with like that and like people are able to manipulate it like that? Are we really free? Are we really free? Is it really a constitutional republic if it's not functioning like that because it's being bought and sold? I would say no. So I think the number one challenge going into this election, because I think it's a super contentious. I think it's going to be the most contentious election in our history, and I think that it's got potential for all hell to break loose, no matter which way it goes. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like, history is definitely going to get made this year in November, and I'm like, fucking hold on tight.
So do you watch Seinfeld at all?
Yeah,
I used to
watch
George
Seinfeld.
Costanza's dad. Do you ever remember that episode where they're like, Serenity Now?
Yeah.
Serenity Now.
Yeah.
We need a little serenity now, man.
Yeah.
George Costanza's dad. He's the best.
Yeah. Seinfeld was a great show.
Best. Loved it.
Great show. So we didn't introduce you properly. So do you want to tell everybody who you are? I mean, we just went right into it. So let's just back up.
Oh, we started this thing already?
Yeah.
Holy shit. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm Todd Fairbairn. I'm the founder of OTTE Gear, which is a tactical lifestyle brand.
Yeah, that's a good way to. That's a great marketing talking point.
I was like, how do I describe it? I'm like, we are tactical, yet we have a sense of humor and we have style. So I'm like, well, we're kind of lifestyle. So
yeah,
we're not all business. We're a little bit of pleasure. We kind of meet. We have a sense of humor. We've got some style. We're definitely very design driven. We want cool shit. We want stuff to look good, fit well, and we like to have fun.
Yeah, I would say that's an accurate depiction of the brand. So yeah, okay.
And it's an adventure, man. It's like,
and this is in fact your first podcast, correct?
This is.
Yeah.
This is my first.
How do you feel like you're doing so far?
Oh, it's great, man.
Okay.
Just like chatting to an old friend.
Yeah, you're doing good.
All right.
Some people are awkward, and it takes them 15, 20 minutes to like loosen up and.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some people are super awkward. You're doing great. Good job.
Nice.
So, yeah, let's talk about the OTTE Gear legacy, and then we'll tell some like origin story of like how you and I ran across each other, and then like all the things that happened after that. And
yeah, what do you want to know? Like,
so how did because I know you were like an outside like you had your own rep firm for outdoor community because you were a big outdoorsman. Like you big climber, alpinist.
Right.
You did a through hike of the Appalachian Trail.
I did. I just had my 30th anniversary this past year.
Oh, wow.
Can't believe it's been 30 years. And that was nuts. That was a great time.
Did you do anything? for that or no?
I did. One guy at the SHOT Show, we met on the Appalachian Trail, and we did a reunion hike. We got together 20 years, and we hiked part of Maine in the 100-mile wilderness, and we finished in Katahdin. He was going through a divorce at the time. It was very cathartic for him. And there was another guy that was with us. He actually finished what they call the Triple Crown. He just finished in Montana the Continental Divide Trail. So he actually missed our reunion hike, which kind of pissed me off. But, he had a good excuse. But
so Triple Crown, that means he's done through hiked the entire Appalachian Trail, through hiked the entire Pacific Crest Trail.
That's right.
And then
finished with the Continental Divide Trail.
Isn't that one the hardest?
That one's definitely the hardest. There's no maps on some parts of that shit.
Yeah.
It's the longest. It's like 3,100 miles, Mexico to Canada. I mean, I remember him calling me at the border of Wyoming and Montana and saying, "Hey, dude, I got to get home for a job in 30 days. We were going to link up in Montana and hike some of, the wilderness areas up there." But it was like a job for him. He's like, "Bro, I just did the math. I got to do 28 miles a day for 30 days straight, no days off." He was waking up and hiking in the dark, and he was hiking till after dark, and it was like that for 30 days. And I'm like, I want no part of that, man. That sounds absolutely awful.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to chase some lofty goals like that, great, but like I feel like you should enjoy them a bit. It shouldn't be like a fucking suffer fest, I don't think.
Dude, it's a job. I mean, the AT was a job at one point too, man. You're like, 4 or 5 months in and you still have another month of this thing. It's like, you wake up, it's like going to work. You put your boots on, put on wet socks, wet shirt, it's cold, pack your sleeping bag down, break down a wet tent, start slogging, and then, if you're lucky it's warm, you can lay your stuff out at lunchtime, dry it out, pack it back up so at least at nighttime when you go back into your fart sack, it's dry. Sorry, my alarm's going off. It's going to go off again. But it was a grind. At the end, it was a grind. And I was like, man, I'm glad this is over. I got sick at the end. I was like, the 100-mile wilderness is the last little stretch of trail you have to do before you hit Mount Katahdin, which is the end. And some of these old thru hikers were kind of paying it forward, and they were setting up feed camps in there, and they'd feed you. And I got there a little bit too late, so they left, but they left some like canned food, like sauerkraut and some other shitty stuff that no one wanted to eat. And I remember getting it, and I whiffed it down, and I don't know, something was like off, because, man, I was like shitting like nobody's business, man. And if you've ever gone camping and you've had to go to the bathroom and you're like fumbling in the dark trying to get out of a tent fly in the middle of the night while you're about to explode.
It's not fun.
No.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
So how old were you when you did that?
I was 24.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just finished my infantry officer basic course at Fort Benning at the time. And it was the beginning of April, and that was right when the Army was starting to shrink, and they just didn't need a lot of young lieutenants. And so they're basically like, "Lieutenant, if we need you, we'll call you." And so they put me on the individual ready reserve. So they cut me loose. And so another buddy of mine who was in a similar position, we just threw everything in our rucksacks, and we just drove 3 miles north to Dahlonega, which is the actually Ranger School, Mountain Phase.
There. Yep, Mountain Phase is there.
And we actually ran across a lot of the, areas that the Rangers had torn up and left shit everywhere. But, we went up there. Another buddy of us dropped us off and started hiking.
Just started heading north, huh?
Started heading north.
And how many days did it take you?
188.
Okay. Wow.
6 months and
8 days.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Dude, it was a lot.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I bet you it was a amazing experience.
I thought it was going to be this huge wilderness experience. I was going to get to know myself and, figure out what I wanted to do with my life as a 24-year-old. And I got on that thing, and the dudes that I met and the chicks were epic individuals, man. Like, every walk of life, from blue collar, like firemen from Boston to like, executives that had just retired from IBM and, veterans and, total stoners and guys that you definitely think had broken out of prison and were hiking there. I mean, it ran the gamut. And the great thing about it is nobody knew each other before, so you could kind of reinvent yourself or at least be really authentic, to use your word from earlier in the podcast. And it was unbelievable. And you could just be, it was so liberating. And you get a trail name. And so my trail name was Chow Hound because I like to chow down. And when I started the trail, we couldn't find a food bag big enough for all my food. So my buddy pulled the pillowcase off of my bed at the billeting in Fort Benning, and we threw everything into this, basically a pillowcase. That was my food bag. And it was before I knew what the fuck I was doing. So half of it was canned. So I must have had about 35 pounds of canned food for 2 weeks. I thought I wasn't going to get resupply for 2 weeks. I had no idea what I was doing. So when I started, my pack weighed 86 pounds.
Oh, God.
And just being a dumb, infantry lieutenant, I didn't think about that I was carrying so much fucking weight because I'd just been carrying all this shit for IOBC. So, I had an extra pair of boots and like all sorts of stupid stuff. And the guys in the trail squared me away, man. They slowly but surely molded me into, a long distance hiker. Got rid of the shit you didn't need. Told you how to use your stove right, your thermarest, and yeah, it was pretty cool. I learned everything on the fly. I had no idea how to use any of that shit. It was awesome.
So you wrapped up the A Trail, and then what did you? Then what was next?
After that experience, I'm like, man, I don't want to sit down and ride a desk for my whole life. I did have a job back in Boston, working for Enterprise Rent-A-Car actually, and that was kind of an interesting experience too. But I knew I wanted to keep the party going, but I was out of money.
Right.
So I'm like, fuck it. I'm gonna go back to this job with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And I did, and I saved my money for another year, and then I popped smoke and I bought a round the world ticket, and I left Boston, flew first to San Fran, hung out with my sister for a couple of days.
Oh, Mary was living in San Francisco then?
Mary was doing the San Fran hippie-dippy
I didn't know
thing.
she was a hippie. I love that about her.
Yeah, it was great. Well, she wasn't really hippy-dippy. She had a corporate job out there. It was pretty good, but hung out with her for a few days, and then flew to see an old boss of mine in Hawaii, and then flew to New Zealand and just started the adventure down there. And, climbing and skiing and hiking all over New Zealand. I thought I was only going to spend like 2 weeks there. I ended up spending 3 months there.
I've heard that it's easy to do there. I've heard that New Zealand's absolutely amazing.
Dude, it is epic. It's like going back to America in the 1950s, man. Like I hitchhiked everywhere. People love talking to Americans. I mean, it's so small town. I mean, the whole country back then had 3.5 million people. And most of them were on the North Island, and all the mountains and stuff is in the South Island. All the really super cool stuff is down there, and there's nobody living down there. And, I can remember hitchhiking and getting picked up by these Kiwi farmers, and just they'd invite me back to their house. They wouldn't even know me. They'd drive me around. We'd drink beers together, and it was just like a great time. And, I think they're a little bit isolated being in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So having like somebody interesting and different to be there, they were like totally into like, who's this American? What's he about? Like, let me hear a little bit about him. So that was pretty cool. And then Australia after that. And then I ran out of money. I picked fruit for a while. That was kind of an interesting experience.
You picked fruit in Australia? Or
Actually, I picked it in New Zealand.
Okay.
And cherries and apricots for like 2 weeks.
So you went to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Then you went to Australia.
Yeah.
What did you do while you were in Australia?
Oh, man, learned to surf, scuba dive.
Where'd you spend the most time at?
Definitely. I flew into Sydney, hung out there for a while, flew to Tasmania because it was turning into their winter, and I wanted to get down there.
Yeah.
So I flew down there. I did a bunch of the epic treks down there.
How is that? I'm dying to get down to Tasmania.
Tasmania was like New Zealand, but with animals.
Okay.
So, like New Zealand, for those that don't know, they don't have any native mammals besides seals and bats.
Oh, wow.
Anything else was introduced there. They have a lot of deer and other, stuff, but that was all stuff animals Europeans brought.
Oh, no kidding.
Back when the pioneers went down there 200 years ago. And Australia, though, they have tons of stuff: kangaroos, wombats.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of critters down there, which was kind of cool. So that was amazing. And then my dad, he was living vicariously through me. He's like, dude, I'm meeting you in Sydney. We're going to go scuba diving up in the Great Barrier Reef. And so I'm like, I'm in, man, let's go. And so we flew up to Cairns, Australia, and spent a week up there. I took a scuba course, and then he and I went on a boat for like 5 days, and we were like scuba diving the reef. And my dad, you know, he's like a funny dude, and you know, at the time, obviously, he was in his 50s, and he's a little overweight, fat American guy. But he loves his like Speedo briefs, and I remember like he embarrassed the shit out of me, man. He was like strutting around the boat wearing his Speedo, and there's all these young like, you know, backpacker chicks in their 20s that I'm hanging out with. And
they've seen all of that down in Australia. Like that's a way of life down there. They call them budgies or budgie smugglers down there.
Man, my dad was a super bungee smuggler, man. He was like loving it too, like waving his, you know, his banana hammock around everywhere, man. He loved it.
And so you guys did some diving on the Great Barrier Reef.
We did diving in the Great Barrier Reef, and then he flew back to Sydney, and that's when he like linked up with the whole branch of our family that had moved there.
Oh wow!
Yeah, from my great grandmother had died in childbirth. My great grandmother had died in childbirth. She sent her daughter basically was sent to America, to Texas, and was brought up by nuns, and her father basically was like, okay, my wife just died. I'm not taking care of the kid. The kid's going to America. It's like, I'm leaving Ireland and I'm going to New Zealand or to Australia. And so he immigrated over there, it was a tailor, and then the whole side of the family down there that I had no idea about.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's
What was
awesome.
even crazier is, fast forward the story a little bit, I end up going back to Sydney. My dad goes through the phone book, looking up all the wards in the phone book, like all the JM wards, and the fifth one finally hits pay dirt and is like, hey, are you John Ward? Was your mother so-and-so, so-and-so? Did you used to live in this? It's like, yeah. Who the hell is this? And it's like, hey, man, I'm your cousin. And I go to this house, and the guy pulls out a picture of me as an infant with my cousin sitting on my grandfather's lap.
Oh, wow.
This total stranger had a picture of me, which was a little trippy.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it was wild. He was an attorney down there, and I was trying to meet the kids that were my generation, but we never linked up. But it was just kind of cool to see, you know, the Irish diaspora spread all over the world, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, as they do.
Yeah.
Do you still get down to Australia at all or no?
No, I mean, no, it's not like driving to New Jersey or something like that.
No,
Man.
it's a plane ride, man. It's definitely a plane
it's a
ride.
commitment.
Yeah, it's a commitment
It's
for sure.
a multi-day commitment.
Yeah. Yeah, it took me 27 hours to get home this last trip. I flew 14 hours from Sydney to LAX. But then, of course, when I landed at first thing in the morning, there was no flights going to Montana because I keep my truck at my buddy's house in Montana. So like there was no way for me to get to Montana any sooner than like 3 p.m. or something like that. So I had to spend 7 hours in the airport. And then fucking Delta in their infinite wisdom, I'm like, it's cool. I'll hit the Delta lounge. I'll just hang out. No. Delta, like you used to be able to get into the Delta lounge one of two ways. One, either you're an American Express Platinum card holder, or two, you just pay $125. And I think at one point
Shit, it's that much.
it used to be, well, it went up even more. Like I remember one point in time it was like $175, but I had this like wild like 10-hour layover at an airport, and I was just like, I don't want to deal with humans. I want quiet. I want food. I want some comfortable seating. So I just like paid the money, and it was great. But now they've changed it to where you cannot get in unless you are a platinum card holder.
Period.
Yeah, they won't let you in unless you're. Yep.
You can't pay cash.
Nope, they won't let you pay cash. And no more paying cash. You just have to be a card holder. So yeah, I couldn't. So I'm like, oh.
So did you become American Express Platinum card holder after that?
No, fuck them. So I went upstairs and just found a little lounger and just hung out up there for 7 hours and did work. I napped for a while and then did some work on my computer and then just hung out. Got a bite to eat and then got on a flight and then I flew LA to Salt Lake, 2-hour layover in Salt Lake, then flew Salt Lake to Montana.
Oh man.
And it was long. So it was like 27 hours door to door. Yeah, so it was a trip for sure. So yeah, it is a commitment. It's certainly a commitment.
But love, man.
That's
That's what you'll do for love.
my girl's fucking awesome. And Australia's awesome. The people there are awesome. I love Australia.
Yeah.
Super cordial, amazing coffee. Cato and I like talk about their coffee, like the coffee there. I mean, just coffee in general internationally. Like he just came back from Europe and he's like, our coffee is trash.
How hard is it to make good coffee,
I
man?
don't know.
I'm like, what are the Europeans and the Australians doing that we can't replicate it?
I don't know.
Or is it just your mindset when you travel is different, so
No.
you only think it tastes better?
No, I'm a coffee aficionado. Like I fucking love coffee. Like I nerd out on coffee. Like we've been going down, like I have my own like little pour over setup on the truck. So we've been doing like tailgate. We've been tailgating every morning where we go down. I'll get out my little stove, boil the water, hand grind my beans, and like we'll do a tailgate pour over every morning before we go into the show.
In the parking garage.
Yeah, right here in the parking lot.
Oh my
right here.
gosh, dude.
Yeah, because I fucking can't stand the coffee here. Although I was jonesing so bad for coffee today, but we fucked up. We were in a hurry. We're trying to get to the podcast with Todd Hodnett, who we interviewed today. Great dude. And there's a really good, what's that cafe called? Illy. Yeah, they do have good coffee there. But
That's Italian, right?
yeah, and we blew by it because I'm a fucking idiot, and we were trying to get to the elevator to link up with Todd's son Colby, and like ended up getting Starbucks. And then on the way back out, we were like, "Fuck, we're dumb. We should have stopped there at Illy and got coffee." So we'll do that. We'll stop at Illy tomorrow. But
Now, when you're on the road like that and you're gonna pay for it, like, is there a dollar amount that gets to be too expensive, where you're like, that's just fucking insulting? And I'll preface it by saying I was just in the Adirondacks last weekend, and it's the Adirondacks. It's not like New York City or L.A. So I was expecting to get a reasonably, priced cup of coffee. So after skiing, I went into this little hipster joint in not a fancy town at all, and in Keene Valley, and dude, it was $7.02. And I'm like, what? I mean, granted, it was a large coffee, but I'm like, okay, did I look like a sucker, or is that legitimately what it cost now? I mean, and that wasn't and maybe they included the tip. I don't know, but that kind of was like, all right, that's pushing my buttons a little bit.
yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that is steep for a cup of coffee. In Australia, I can get a long black, as they call it, which is basically just like a
Americano.
yeah, it's a black coffee.
Yeah.
It's like $4 for a large, and it's so like with the conversion rate, it's like
$3
less, $2.75 for a fucking cup of coffee.
Yeah, that's reasonable, right?
Yeah, and it's good, and the coffee is amazing. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm completely on
Yeah.
board with you. We're
Yeah.
getting hosed over here on a few things with like regard to services provisions, but I absolutely love international travel, and Australia is amazing. They're competing with Canada for our second place, and I stoke the fire because I do this thing on the podcast where I do the top 10 on Weapons Free Wednesday, which is our Wednesday segment where I like rant or we'll do questions. And sometimes I do top 10 where I'll get into our analytics and I'll like go over the top 10 countries, like the top 10 countries out of 90 that are downloading like in competition for the most downloads. And so right now,
on.
like, yeah, Australia and Canada are like fighting hard for second place. Like right now, they're only, I think, like 600 downloads apart.
Now, how do you capture those guys? I mean, you're an American. I mean, granted, we're next to Canada, and
Yeah.
you're dating a Australian.
Yeah.
So how do you get the word out in the street from those two countries?
I don't know. Like I picked up a lot of like international momentum just from being on Cleared Hot with Andy, and co-hosting Full Auto Friday with him. But there's a lot of I continued that momentum by engaging with people on social media. Lots of Australians started DMing me. I started talking to them. Like I try to do a good job with talking to my fans and like engaging with them.
I mean, are these guys that served with Americans in Iraq and
Some of 'em.
Afghanistan? Or are these civilians that are just kind of curious?
A lot of them are civilians, but there's a few that had served in the GWAT with us. But that's Global War on Terror for folks that don't know.
Do people not know what that is?
They
now?
don't know. People are like, "What's GWAT?" I'm like, the GWAT, the Global War on Terror. Yeah. There's a lot of people.
You're getting old when you have to explain the acronyms.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a 20-year long ordeal, and what's crazy to me too is like, as much as I love Australia, and the people are cordial, the food's great, and it's amazing there. They have zero sense of like national identity or patriotism, and they have like zero sense of like veteran service ship. Like they have like Anzac Day is coming up. I think it's April 25th.
That's like our Veterans Day.
Yeah, and then I think they do something else. Yeah, it's like our Veterans Day, but like if you go to like their memorials, there's still like Anzac Day is about a battle that happened in World War One.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, hey, cool. Like, good on the veterans from World War One that like whipped it on and kicked some German ass. But like World War II is a thing, and Australians served in that.
Right.
Vietnam was a fucking thing, and they augmented us and served in that. And
Korea
then,
too.
And Korea, yeah. And then like, I'm like, okay, like the global war on terror that we were partners in, just like they were side by side with us through that, like combating terrorism in Iraq and Afghanistan, and like. You see hardly any global war on terror like recognition at all.
So they embarrassed about it? Are they trying to like
I don't
think
know.
it like
I
it'll
just
go
don't-
away?
yeah,
Like
I just think the demographic is so small because you're talking about a country where they're like 80% the same landmass as us, which I didn't even know this. I thought Australia was like, for whatever reason in my stupid mind, I thought Australia was smaller.
they're about the same size.
They're nearly the same size as us landmass wise.
Right.
But they have a 12th of our population. Like they only have like 26 million people. So nearly the same landmass with 26 million people.
Oh my gosh.
So you've got like a super decreased population. Yeah. So when you're talking about a population density that is that much less than us, then like how big is the ADF, the Australian Defense Force? And like out of those people, like how many serve in a combat arms role? And out of those people, how many actually had bullets fly past them?
So there's like 3 people.
Right. It's like 16 dudes. 16 dudes in the whole country. No, obviously being facetious, but, 2 commando and SAS and all of the Australian infantry regiments. And then there was also some Kiwis, too, that served with us. Like, I met some Kiwis on a mission that we did in Bamiyan province, and they escorted us, and great dudes, too. The Kiwis are great dudes, too. But, like, yeah, it's just a weird thing that they have over there that I've noticed where they just...
Patriotism isn't really a thing, and like love of country, and
no, they're getting very, and to my Australian people that are, listening to this, I love all of you, and this is my stupid, dumb, fuck American opinion, so just bear with me, but they're being super apologetic about like all of the indigenous, like Aboriginal, like, oh,
Taking
we took your land and we honor your elders, and like, okay, cool. I get that to a certain extent, but like, it's kind of the shit that like goes on here where we like people still expect reparations from slavery.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a historical thing that happened. I think we can all agree that like it wasn't the best thing that happened, but it was our history, and we can all like stop sitting around lamenting over these things and maybe just like be better humans all together and like maybe do a better job. Now, like I think that because I don't think that the Aboriginals are very, like, I don't think they're allowed to serve in Parliament right now or something like that, or I could be wrong about that. Maybe there are parliamentary.
Wait, what? Because they are Aboriginal?
Yeah, or they're not. There's not a lot of them that are actually elected representatives, and so I think that's a thing, and they're working on that. But like, they're starting to get so apologetic about things that it's creating like, and I might sound like a fucking idiot for saying this, but like, because racism is racism no matter what, but it's creating kind of this like reverse racism like it is here, where you've got like, black people that want to be anti-racism and talk about systemic racism by being racist and hating white people. Right. So you're kind of starting to see the same thing unfold in Australia, and it's starting to piss a lot of people off and create some not so good social metrics there. So it's interesting. And, to my Australian listeners, I'm neutral on this topic. I'm just talking from my stupid American perspective, being a guest in your country. But like, these are the things that I kind of look at and I'm like, what the fuck is, this all about? So
yeah, it's interesting as an American and as an outsider, and you're coming into a culture and you're looking at it from the outside looking in, you can have a different perspective.
Yeah.
And, you can ask the questions that they might not even know that need to be asked, especially when it comes to this.
Yeah. So my thing is like, okay, maybe we quit looking in the past and being fucking whiners, and we look in the present and we figure out how to like work together and solve problems and like be good humans to each other in the present moment.
Right.
So, yeah. But
the past happened.
Yeah, the past happened.
Don't erase it.
Yeah, don't erase it. Don't change it. You got your fucking ass kicked and you got your island taken by white people.
Right.
Okay, that happened.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Cool. Now let's maybe be good humans to each other right now.
Right.
And if we need to put some people in, give some people the opportunity to get elected and be in parliament and represent their demographic, probably should do that.
Right.
But yeah, I get tired of the fucking whining, even here in this country, like the whole whining about shit. Like, you're not special. Shut the fuck up. Like, stop trying to change our history. Stop trying to change it to what you think how history should have gone and how sorry we should be for these. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
You lost. You fucking lost. Like, it's like, it reminds me of like the Super Bowl when the opposing, the fans from the other team, get a case of the fucking shits about losing the game and act like assholes and go flip over cars and fucking loot and break windows out and stuff. And I'm just like, no, you guys lost.
It is a little weird because I have a son who's a freshman right now in college. And as we toured a bunch of different schools, a lot of times they begin the tour by saying we like to acknowledge the fact that we're on Lenape land or whatever tribe happens to be in that area. And I'm like, okay, what's the acknowledgement about? Like, okay, we stole the land. We,
Right. You lost.
Killed off as many
you lost
Native Americans as we possibly could. I'm like, where are you going with this, man? Are you going to give the school property back to the Indians? I'm like,
no.
Bro,
you lost. Sorry. You can't get that Super Bowl trophy if you whine really hard about it. Like, give us the trophy because we deserve it. We were the champions last year. You beat us.
Yeah.
No, fuck you. You lost.
It is a little bit weird. I don't know if am I getting old when that kind of stuff starts to rub me a little wrong or what?
Yeah, I guess we're just getting old. When
crotchety, or like the old guy like raising his fist and shaking it in the air.
Yeah, my favorite thing.
Abe Simpson style.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Gen X is a thing, and so like.
Are you Gen X?
Yeah, I'm Gen X.
Oh man, me too.
Yeah, and so now like I've been like how like the millennials were like always their thing was like okay boomer. Like my thing now is like, okay, Zoomer, for the Gen Z fucking idiots doing dumb shit.
Oh my gosh.
So, okay, well, you were working at Enterprise, and then at what point did you become a rep, an outdoor, because you started your own rep group. So so back into like who you worked for in the outdoor space.
Sure.
Because you did these adventures in New Zealand and Australia. Then you obviously had to come home.
Yeah, so I ran out of money.
Yeah, as you will when you're out adventuring.
And I still wanted to keep it going. So I'm like, man, I got a gold card. I got a $5,000 limit on this bad boy. I'm like, I'm not ready to go home. So I kept charging, and I had this round the world ticket. And so I was going to go from Sydney to Bangkok to like Athens, London, New York. And that was the end of the trip. And I'm like, fuck it, man. So I took it and I said, let me go to Bangkok. So I did. And then I was like, dude, I got to go to Vietnam. And this was 1995. And we had just normalized relations with Vietnam. Like Warren Christopher, the Secretary of State under Clinton, had just normalized it. I'm like, I'm going, man. Flew over to Saigon, and dude, talk about like crazy time, man. It was like, it was nuts, man. There was like, Americans were just starting to go over there. There wasn't many. The war was like literally just 20 years before.
Yeah.
And so I went over there, and it was so poor and like unstructured. They haven't seen too many white dudes. There's definitely no Americans over there. And I spent a month. I got on a motorcycle and I toured around and just having a look around. I went down to the Mekong Delta. I went up to Hue and, saw a lot of the battles where the Marines were, during the Tet Offensive and stuff. But I remember driving the motorcycle, and there's no bridges. A lot of times there's no bridges across these rivers. You have to take a little ferry across. And so here I am, like the only white dude for miles around. I'd pull up to these little stops waiting for the ferry to come. And these kids would come out of these little huts, and they'd see me, and they'd come out. And I'm like, okay, let's see these little huts coming out. And, I'm a big white dude who's got hair all over his body. And, the Vietnamese don't have any body hair.
No.
And so they'd never seen it before. And they looked up, they're looking at my arm, and they'd start coming up to me, and these little kids would start touching my arm. And they'd like start laughing and like calling me a gorilla and shit. And finally I would just grab their little hands and I'd like rub it all over my chest, which was like a big fur ball, and they'd like freak out and stuff. And I had a great time. And so I did Vietnam, and I met this woman in what city was I in? In Hanoi.
Yeah.
And I was saying, I want to go to Japan and teach English. She's like, dude, come to Seoul, Korea, and come, like, I'll hook you up with jobs. Literally the day your plane lands, I'll get you jobs. They're trying to globalize their economy right now. They need native English speakers. Like, trust me, it's good. You'll have good money and whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm out of money. So
Yeah.
she told me how much she made. I'm like, okay, let's go. And so I changed my ticket and I flew to Seoul. And From Vietnam. And dude, that was another roller coaster. I ended up living there for a year, loved it, and banked a ton of cash, met some epic people there. I still have my military ID, so I could get onto Post. So I was like the favorite. I was teaching English with all these other guys, and they didn't have an Army ID. They couldn't get on the base. So I became best friends with like everybody that wanted to get signed onto the Post so they could go eat American food. And I would go to the
Buy
office.
stuff at the PX.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'd go there and like I'd go to dinner and be eating Maine lobster for $8 at the Officers Club. And
I
it's
love
like,
that.
my girlfriends at the time, I was dating a couple girls from California, and they were like, dude, let's go to the Officers Club, because they were just, tired of eating Korean food on the market, in the economy. And so they'd come on to base. It was like the best, like an aphrodisiac having that ID.
Nice.
It was great. Loved it. So then eventually I saved my money. I came back, and then I got back. My parents were living in Pennsylvania. My grandmother just died. I bought her car. I'm like, fuck it. I'm not living on the East Coast. I want to get into the outdoor industry. Where's the epicenter of outdoor in America? I'm like, I'm going to Boulder, Colorado. But before I did that, I tried to rekindle old flames with the girl that I dated in Korea she was a teacher in Reno. That like completely exploded. We couldn't get back together. It was just too much. So then I went back and lived in this dude's basement in Boulder framing houses until I applied for a job at the North Face, and I applied for a job at Specialized Bike or Performance Bicycles. So I worked 2 jobs 7 days a week. I was making $6.45. That was like
I remember
what
those
they
days.
paid,
Yeah.
and like making nothing. And finally, the North Face needed a full-time like selling supervisor. I'm like, I'm there, health benefits, like making $9 an hour. I was like, yes. And worked that for a year. And they're like, hey, we need a rep in New York City. And that was when the North Face was just starting to blow up.
Yeah.
And
They're
so,
starting to like open stores and shit.
Yeah, they'd been opening stores, but they needed a wholesale sales rep. And so here I am in the outdoor, like getting into like crazy rock climbing, skiing. Like it was a blast. And then moving to New York City to be a rep. And I thought I'd be selling ski shops and climbing shops and outdoor stores, but it was like men's stores. Like it was all these like, Arab guys that are just traders that are buying jackets in Harlem for drug dealers. And so I was like, holy shit, man, this is not Boulder, Colorado anymore.
No.
And so I learned that business from a great rep I was with for a year and a half, 2 years, and then left in 2001, and then traveled again, went to Africa, traveled all over Africa, came back a week before 9/11, was out for a run, running to the gym. The plane flew over my head on the Hudson. I was on the running trail, running north. Plane flies over me, boom. And I remember running past a guy who's like, holy shit. And I turn around and I saw it. It was a crystal blue day. And I saw the hole in the side of the building, and you could see the smoke coming out the other side. And I was like, what just happened, man? He's like, dude, a plane just hit the tower. And I was like a little commuter plane? He's like, no, man, like a jumbo jet. And I was like, holy shit. So I looked for a while, and I'm like, man, this is weird. I ran to the gym, which happened to be Chelsea Piers, which is on a pier overlooking lower Manhattan. So I'm on a machine, and I saw the second plane hit it. And then I'm still working out. By that time, people are coming up from lower Manhattan on the trail, on the biking trail. And then I can remember the first one falling, and I'm still at the gym. I see George Bush on the TV. I'm like, holy shit, this is fucked up. I run home, run into my apartment, grab my camera, run back onto the West Side Highway, start taking photographs, because at this point there's only one Trade Center tower left. And so I'm starting to take pictures, and as I'm taking pictures of the tower, it's falling. So I have a series of pictures of the tower
as it's falling.
Just as it's falling, man.
Wild.
And I was like, holy shit. I ran back, called my family, who's also living in Manhattan. Everybody was okay. Great. A buddy of mine was coming in that day from California. It was like the last flight to land in LaGuardia.
Before they locked everything.
Before they locked it, he had to walk into Manhattan across a bridge from like Queens, which took him forever. But I was in Manhattan those like the 2 months that was after 9/11, man. It was like, I don't want to say the coolest thing, but it was pretty amazing how the entire population of that city was kind of aligned, man. We were like in shock, and like people like took care of each other and were nice to each other, which I'd never experienced.
Yeah, New Yorkers being nice to each other is a definite rarity.
Dude, it's rare. It was like everybody was in trauma, and it lasted for about 2 months, and then it was over. But it was like the best 2 months, man, of being in that city. It was amazing. People like pulling together. I'm like, this must have been what it was like during World War II, or you know, some other traumatic times in our history, and it was amazing. You know, we all had this shared experience of being like punched in the face, and you know, I kept my camera with me everywhere I went over that island, and seeing the pictures of the people that were missing and stuff, and the pile that was there. I had buddies of mine that I went to college with that were firemen that were pulling like, you know, body parts out of that thing, which was nuts. And yeah, so after that, I started my sales agency for repping, and the first brand I picked up was this little brand called Canada Goose. And
it's a big brand.
It's a big brand.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, they make good stuff.
They make great stuff. Great brand, great people. It's a family-run business. The Reese family up in Toronto. I met with the grandson of the founder, who was the CEO at the time. We met in Union Square in 2001, and he hired me to launch the brand in the United States. And yeah, it was an amazing ride. I was with them for about 14 years. And it was globally, they were doing 2.5 million. And by the time we left, we were, you know, $500 million by that time. So it was unbelievable growth. So that was one of the brands that I launched. I worked with Scarpa footwear, ski boots, climbing boots.
His favorite still.
Yeah, I'll be rocking those. Yeah, there you go. I'll be rocking those on my birthday on Saturday, when Grizz and I go out and do some climbing in Red Rocks. And Hester Gloves was another one that we picked up. That was another one that was great, family-run business. Yeah, and so that was my repping business, which is great. It's unfortunate that whole industry kind of went through a huge change where, you know, reps were treated well generally. You know, you could make a decent living being a rep, but as the internet started chipping away and
popped up,
you know, retail stores started dying, brands started squeezing the reps, they took more accounts in-house, and just the evolution of that job started like getting snuffed out. And, you know, I saw the writing on the wall. I'm like, man, this is not, you know, a sustainable business, you know, unless you have, you know, a good brand that, you know, wants to keep you around, which is rare to find. I mean, even the big brands and the best brands, they get bought and sold, and new guys come in and have new plans for the brands. So I saw the writing on the wall there, and, you know, luckily I had started OTTE Gear in 2004. It's my 20th year coming to SHOT Show too, and with a bunch of guys that I was with the North Face with too. And we started it in 2004, and you know, I'd kind of neglected it over the years because the repping business was doing great and Canada Goose was going bananas. And, you know, when that business started winding down, you know, my sister, who had helped me grow that business, she was going through transition too, because the company that she was running sales for had also gone through 2 changes of ownership. And so, you know, she's unbelievably talented, and was one of the huge reasons Canada Goose got so big and so successful. It was a lot of her hard work and her smarts. And so we basically said, all right, well, we kind of have the playbook because we've seen this happen with a few brands we've been with. Let's shutter those other businesses and really focus on OTTE Gear. And that was like 2018, 2019. And so that's when we kind of doubled down on the show and design and development and really growing that brand.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, man. I'm glad you brought it back because, I mean, there's some times I remember where I busted your balls a little bit where I'm like, what the fuck you doing, man? Like, you got a great brand, you've got great product, and you fucking are ignoring it. Like, get after it.
Yeah.
And you did. And you did. And you brought it back, and I saw it start to come back, and I'm like, yeah, man, good. He's bringing it back. It's coming back. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you guys started doing more cool stuff, and
Yeah.
now here we are.
Snowballs rolling downhill.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Thanks.
I think it's a unique direction that you guys have kind of spearheaded and are doing really, really well with. So I haven't seen anybody like really taking up a brand position and doing the things that you're doing with like combining the lifestyle and the tactical piece together like you guys have done it. So it's cool to watch.
Yeah, and hopefully that's a good direction to go in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, but it's kind of like pairing my sense of humor and light side, the Hawaiian shirts, the Hawaiian prints.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in SHOT Show 2018, I'm like, man, I love my Patagonia Aloha shirts. I like wear them all the time. And I'm like, Andrew Buitaman, who you actually introduced me to for pinup art.
Yep.
Because he did a lot of the pinup stuff for us early on.
Yeah, he does a great job.
He does a great job. And so we had drinks at SHOT Show 2018. I'm like, Andrew, I want to commission you to do a design for me. He's like, bro, totally in my wheelhouse. I got you. I'm like, all right. And that's when he did Poppies of War, the GWAT shirt, the poppies from Afghanistan, the Soviet weapons, the American weapons. I mean, that was kind of like the home run that he hit right out of the gate. And it kind of started us on this trajectory. I'm like, wow, man, there's a real appetite for, something that guys can wear off duty when they just want to kick back and have beers and chill out. And the great thing about it is if you look at that shirt, it just looks like a Hawaiian shirt until you're at a party and you're having a drink and you're like
right up on it. Yeah.
Holy shit, dude. There's
you got
like
AKs on your shirt.
Exactly. You're like, what the? I remember I was at Outdoor Retailer and I had the pattern on a belt and this woman saw the flowers on it and she's like, dude, I want that belt. And I'm like, all right, I'm happy to sell this belt sample to you. But before I do, just take a closer look at the belt. And so she looked down and she started seeing all the guns in it. She's like, oh, all right, thanks for letting me know. She's like, yeah, I don't want it anymore. I'm like, yeah, I thought so.
Thought not. Yeah. Okay, so then I remember, let's see. So you were actually my first apparel design job, working together, doing a collaborative design effort. So we did some cool shit early on, and self-admittedly, it was my first crack at apparel. I'd done weapons accessory stuff a lot with Surefire, with lights and other gadgetry. So I was good on the hard goods side of the house and had a really good idea with that. But I had some ideas of what I wanted certain technical pieces to do. And so we came up with, what was it? The Overwatch.
Yeah. The Overwatch and the Sentinel.
Yeah. We did the Sentinel and the Overwatch. The Sentinel or the Overwatch is more geared towards assaulters, and the Overwatch is more geared towards a recce sniper section. And so, yeah, I mean, you were a great sport and I think the ideas were valid, but I think where I failed is I just had no understanding of how much needle time those fucking two pieces were going to have to be on, the cost
associated. Dude, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I designed the fucking,
my factory called me and they're like, you understand how many hours are going into this recce, the Overwatch anorak, right? And I'm like, no. They're like, bro, we can make 2 Toyota Camrys faster than we can make this thing.
Yeah. So I think I certainly not being good at design, but conceptual design and having an understanding of end user features that, I could see that people wanted. And I think they were valid. People were coming up and validating the design and being like, yeah, that's fucking awesome. But it was just, I didn't understand the production cost.
Oh, yeah. I lost so much money on that motherfucker,
Cost of goods. But lost leader because it did get you a shit ton of attention on the brand.
It was a marketing piece as opposed to okay, let's make some money off this one. No, it was marketing.
Yeah. You're correct.
Yeah, looking back and the archives, looking back at the Sentinel and the
Yeah.
Anorak and working with you on that. I mean, I was really excited because you were just coming back from being deployed.
Mm-hmm.
You saw a real need there, and I was like, okay, man, like you sounded like you knew what you were talking about. And so, diving into it, I mean, it was a fun project because I also like designing
Mm-hmm.
and also like working with end users and hearing the feedback from the field and making something that makes somebody's job much easier, which
Mm-hmm.
was the ultimate reason that we started the company in the first place, was to produce products that they weren't getting in their normal governmental channels. And yeah, I had a great time. And then when the price tag came in and, North American manufacturing and all the crazy cool shit we put into that thing, I mean, yeah, it was definitely a labor of love.
Yeah.
And it was like giving birth to a baby.
Yeah.
If I had a vagina, it would have been like majorly stretched out.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to believe this. I still have that jacket. It's still hanging in my closet. I'll send you a picture when I get home. Yeah, I still have it. Great. It was a great piece. And I think all the end user inspired features were definitely valid.
Oh yeah. They were cool.
The thing that we just fucked up on is like, I had no clue of what COGS are. Like at the time I didn't even know what COGS, what cost of goods and services. Like I had no idea what the cost of goods to manufacture, like source the material.
Yeah.
And manufacture that thing was going to be, and then, having no idea of like on the business end of like margin and like, sales strategy and stuff like that. Like in my mind, I was just like, well, but the guys need it. Like I've just spent a whole deployment freezing my ass off on the side of a mountain, getting rained and snowed on. And I needed this capability and I needed these features and I didn't fucking have them and I want them, and like, and you did a great job and listened and we put it together and I think we were both excited about the project, and it just was outrageously we priced ourselves out of the market on it.
Yeah.
So, and that was pre design school era for me. So,
oh, that's right.
Yeah, I ended up going to design school where I learned all of this shit, like business related things and relative to design and manufacturing and cost of goods and materials and like all the things that I didn't know prior to that. And so then I ended up like, it served me well later because I ended up doing a couple.
Did you ever think about calling up the phone and being, Todd, gotta apologize, man. I just learned about all of the hard shit that you were doing behind the scenes that I had no clue on.
You just got it just now.
All right. 15 years later, I got the apology. All right.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, but it, I went on to do design projects for apparel with a couple other companies, and then like Beyond was one of them.
Oh, that's right.
And we did, they did a run of our camouflage, which was really awesome, in a soft shell. But those two pieces, the action shirt and the what became the Rig Light pant, I actually designed with all of my newfound knowledge from design school, and the Rig Light pant went on and became one of their most popular selling pants, and they made.
Oh, no kidding.
They made a good 7-figure. They sold a shit ton of those to the Air Force pararescue guys, and like it was their best selling pant.
No kidding.
Yeah, and then my later project with them was the last one I did was the Yuba top. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was an Anorak rain shell that was like super packable and it like packs down this big.
Right.
Yeah, I designed that and it like same thing.
Oh wow.
Went gangbusters, and so like yeah, I came back and had two big wins under my belt with Beyond, with apparel design and collaborative design stuff, and it did well for them. So
that's great.
So yes, I fixed my issues of what I call the $10,000 backpack. I call this what I essentially did in that situation, the $10,000 backpacks syndrome. Is I was at Mystery Ranch with those guys, and I sat in a meeting where Navy SEALs came in, and they were like, we want it to be this, and we want a carbon fiber molded frame, and we want titanium hardware, and we want this, and we want this, and we want this. And like, Dana Gleason, awesome, like legend in the industry.
Sure.
Sat there and looked at him, and he just laughed. He just chuckled his like hearty chuckle, and he's like, well, hold on a second, fellas. And he started thinking about it, and he's like, pretty sure you guys just came up with the $10,000 backpack. And he's like, because they wanted so much like custom and space age, super lightweight material. They wanted like titanium hardware on it, That's
crazy.
And they wanted a carbon fiber frame. They wanted all this crazy stuff. And he's like, okay. So he started, because he's been doing it for so many years, he started putting pen to paper, and he's like, well, it's going to cost me this much to R&D that. And it was like 6 figures. And then he's like, and I think these guys were from Dev Group. I think they were from SEAL Team 6. But he's like, so they were used to like nobody ever telling him no. And so he started laughing and he's like, well, how many of these you guys are going to buy? And they're like, oh, it's just for our troop. And he's like, so you want me to sink $350,000 into R&D to sell you 30 of these at 10 grand a pop? That's not going to get me my money back. So he, so then after watching that meeting and like watching this whole thing go down, I was like, oh, the $10,000 backpack syndrome. And I was like, I did that to Todd.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, but I designed the $10,000 anorak. Yeah. Yeah. Do you still have any of them?
Dude, we have some in the museum. Actually, we had a couple left. We kept them on the website because it's a cool piece to have. Yeah. And we had a couple of rock stars, literal rock stars, buy a couple. I'm like, who just bought this? It's an $800 piece. Yeah. And I'm barely making my money back at $800. And we sold one recently.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, then fuck you and your apology. So speaking of rock stars, did you hang out with Post Malone last night? Mary told me a little story today.
Well, I'll let Mary tell the story because I needed my beauty sleep.
Oh, so you did not? Did you punch out?
I did, man. I couldn't do it. You
didn't go?
I didn't go.
What is wrong with you?
I know, man. I guess I'm just not a big enough fan or something, or I'm just a wimp.
You went, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, Eric went. Yeah. He checked it out.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that kid is still standing right now, man. Because
he told me we were in the booth. He's like, "Bro, I've never had a Red Bull in my life, but I might." Did you drink one?
Oh,
no.
seriously?
No,
you should have, man. You should have.
Yeah.
No, but I heard it was pretty epic. I heard the story, and it was.
Yeah, Mary
cool.
said that she went and hung. I assumed that you'd be there with her.
No, I mean
she's
a
cool. Wildcat. Your sister's a wildcat.
We definitely have. We're yin and yang, man. Yeah. I'm in bed by 9 o'clock, snuggling in my bed, and she's out tearing it up.
Yeah. So she went out and tore it up with Post Malone. She told me, she's like, I passed out on his couch at some point. She goes, I think it was 6 a.m. She's like, he came by and tapped my foot, and I was like, good night, I'm going to bed, and went up to his room. She said he was a blast to hang out with. I've heard a lot of people say that because I know a few people in the industry that hang out with him pretty regularly.
Yeah.
And I love how much he supports, the military and the Second Amendment crowd, and he loves, guns, and he trains. People I see comments where people are talking shit, but he legitimately takes it seriously, and he trains with top tier dudes, and he's not an idiot with a gun. He knows what's up.
Oh, dude, I hear he's John Wick action, man.
Yeah.
The training that he's done. I mean, he's a young guy. Yep. And he's athletic, and he has the resources, and that's a great combination of being a good shooter.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've heard stuff, and I was even in the booth today talking to a couple of other guys that have training companies and work with other brands, and they're like, Todd, if you see him, can you thank him because he's bought so much stuff of our website. Yeah. And you hear that in this industry, oh my gosh, man, we got this huge order. We had no idea who it was for, what it was for, but somebody told me it was Post Malone. They're like, man, if you ever hear from him, thank him, man, because it was a great order and he's a great customer. Yeah.
Good dude.
Yeah.
I what do you call it? A net positive gain, or what do you call it? Net positive for the industry.
Yeah. For sure. Although he definitely walks that. I mean, that's a tightrope walk he's got to walk because he's passionate about this, right? But it's not necessarily the best look for his,
for what he's doing. I don't think he cares though. I think he's so successful now at this point, which good on him. Great on him for being as successful as he is. I don't know if he cares that much anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you always have to care. I think you just have to be careful, man.
What do you think? You hung out with him. Do you think he cares about what, people talking shit about what he's doing? I would love to. I'm gonna have to get his ass on the podcast. Is what I'm gonna have to do. I'm gonna work on.
He's still here.
I'm gonna work on getting him on the podcast.
Well, maybe any of your listeners are listening now.
I'll be like, Mary, get me Post Malone. Let's get him on the podcast. I want to talk to him. I want to thank him for all the positive things he's doing for the industry.
Yeah, that would be great.
So OTTE Gear, man. So where do you see OTTE Gear going? Do you have strategic plans going into this next year? What are your big ticket items in terms of product development? Because you guys have some really cool products right now. You got the Hawaiian shirts you're talking about. You guys make some great inclement weather apparel, like tech apparel.
Yep.
You guys have always done that. Soft
right.
shell was like fucking you were one of the persons that spearheaded soft shell in the industry.
We're the first ones to do a multicam soft
yeah,
shell.
yeah. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, back when a lot of people say another company based in Vancouver did it first.
Fuck you,
like,
Arc'teryx. Fuck you. No, Arc'teryx they make really good shit, but I'm really not stoked on like what's going. I don't know what the fuck's going on with their company, but like they've been bought and sold so many times. Like I don't know who the new corporate leadership is, but I used to have really really great connects. I still have a pro account with them that was set up and given to me by my friends at Leaf.
Right.
And like this last year, we tried to order some new Leaf gear, and they were like, "Oh well, your account." So I had to call the company because I'm like. Because it says in my pro account, like when you log on to the back end of my pro account, it says Leaf. And I'm like, bro, like I called I can't remember who I talked to over there.
Customer service or?
Yeah, I started in customer service and they couldn't help me. So I ended up talking to some VP over there. And I'm like, look, I was opened a industry professional account by the Leaf team on the Leaf side of the house to get pro deals on Leaf gear because that's what I do. I'm a firearms instructor and I'm a hunter, and that I need your gear in camo. I don't need or in crocodile. I don't need it in fucking goddamn chartreuse. Like I need what I need. So why aren't I giving access? Because I used to on the back end, you'd get access to in the portal. You know when you had a Proform account, you'd log in and you could either buy sports side of the house stuff or you could buy Leaf.
Right.
And I always just used to buy Leaf.
Right.
And I think a couple of times I bought sports stuff.
Right.
But it was because they had it in the right colors.
Right.
It wasn't in like all the fucking stupid, dumb,
chartreuse,
not masculine colors that they fucking do in the sports side of the house.
Yeah.
For all.
Well, you know what not to their defense, but to explain a little bit. I mean, you have to understand that company has grown so big, and it's grown big on the commercial side, right? Yeah. The ski, hunt, outdoor side of things. And Leaf was started by a bunch of passionate guys, but if you look at the overall business, I mean, you got to look at the bean counters, got to take a look, and they say, okay, how big is our commercial business? Yeah. How big is our Leaf business? And then they look and they say, wait a minute, we sell more in this one style and one color and one fleece jacket than we do all of Leaf. Like, why does Leaf exist? Let's just sell more of that one fleece color.
Okay,
and so
but devil's advocate on that is if they would stop being cunts about like who they sell Leaf gear to, and they opened it up to the commercial market and made it commercially available for like the 2A crowd. Yeah, that would not be the case.
Well, they don't want to do that because that's going to hurt their reputation.
Yeah, because they're bitches.
I mean, a lot of companies, and I don't want to name other names, but there's other companies out there that if their core customer realized how many bodies have been stacked, people wearing these core outdoor brands.
I think you're talking about Patagonia. If you don't want to say it, I'll say it. Okay.
All right. If their core customer base realized that,
I mean, none of these fucking hippies,
a little bit
they don't
upset.
Listen. They don't listen to the podcast, okay? The type of people that you're afraid of offending don't listen to the podcast. Like savage meat eaters listen to this podcast. So, yeah, Patagonia, a lot of people don't understand that Patagonia has a contract at SOCOM where they have an IDIQ contract that for the PCU system, which is the Protective Combat Uniform, which is a 9-layered system, and they've had that contract for what? Fucking shit.
A lot of years, man.
18 years?
Yeah.
Long time.
Yep.
Yeah, so 16, 18 years. And my friend over there, my friend over there runs the program, and he's a great dude, and he's been doing it the whole time, and fantastic dude, phenomenal dude. But like I've told him several times. Yeah, Neuron.
Yeah,
great dude. Love you, Eric, if you ever listen to this. Phenomenal dude.
Right.
Super supportive guy. Like him and I have he's mentored me on some projects before, and I can't say enough good things about that dude.
Right.
I don't know how he's managed to navigate the politics over there because, there's things that I agree with and I'm aligned with Patagonia in terms of environmentalism, but they just have gone too far in the cuckoo Kool-Aid for me. And so...
Yeah, I was actually... Funny you say that because I was, right before Christmas, I was in New York City doing some last-minute shopping, and I popped in. I was in Soho. I popped into the store down there. They got a great store. I walk in and I look around, and the models that they have, they're morbidly obese models in there.
Yeah.
Like you get this 250-pound dude running, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that guy's really fat, and it's a plastic model. I'm like, that's not really attractive. And they have the same female equivalent, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's huge. And then I started walking upstairs, which was generally the men's department, and they had a big poster on the raw brick wall, total Soho, like cool guy stuff. And on the wall it said, instead of men's department or men's area, it said masculine. And it was like, God. I'm like, they can't say men's anymore?
No.
I'm like, it's masculine fit. So if I'm a woman or, I can wear it and not feel bad about it.
What do they call it? Is it gender discrimination if they do that? Yeah. Fucking dumb. It's the dumbest shit
There's
ever.
a word for that? Gender discrimination? Okay. All right.
It's gender discrimination.
I was
if
a little
you call a man and a woman or a woman a woman, and you're making an assumption that how they want to be identified or some stupid fucking bullshit. Anyway, they're too far out on the cuckoo. They've gone way too far on the cuckoo side of the house.
Yeah.
I love Patagonia for years and years and years. You did too. Like I wore their shit and like supported their PCU program.
Yeah.
All the things on the military side of the house.
I will say this though, and I don't know, this is relatively new, is that, well, back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yvon Chouinard, founder of Patagonia, he was an Army vet.
Yeah,
and
he's a veteran.
He spent time in Korea freezing his ass off, which is kind of the birth of that whole Lost Arrow program. And so, I heard he really went, on a rampage because people fought him and said, we shouldn't do this. And he fired a lot of people that said, if you're not supporting this program, you're out.
Yeah.
So that was 20 years ago or 18 years ago when he started launching Lost Arrow on the military side of things. Well, fast forward the 18 years, Yvon is now in his mid-80s. And I think, the whole company is transitioning to this trust or something, however the new ownership structure that they've set up for themselves. Well, one of the things that they did in this process was they sold off Lost Arrow. So it's no longer part of Patagonia.
Oh, wild. So they disconnected, huh?
They did. And Eric is still running it. And Eric started his own company. So it's still Eric and his team, but it's no longer Patagonia.
Oh, wild. Okay.
Yeah. So there is a decoupling. So I think they were starting to feel a little bit of the pressure. And I think Yvon is, sunsetting. And I think the management was like, okay, this is a ticking time bomb. We no longer have our founders cover, this could become a problem for us. So they decoupled it.
They pushed the eject button.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll give Eric a little bit more freedom to.
He was handcuffed a lot on a lot of things that he wanted to do. So that's good. Yeah. Crazy. I did not know that.
That's kind of a new,
it's
a new thing.
I'm disappointed in the direction things are going with that company, but Vaughn, he's still one of my kind of my business Bible is still let my people go surfing.
Love
still
that book.
One of the best books on business and branding and manufacturing that I've ever read. So if you guys are trying to start a company out there and doing apparel or doing any type of outdoor gear or any type of manufacturing business, you should read that book.
Yeah, I think that inspired me too when I was on my journey with OTTE Gear too. That was a good one. Another one that I got turned on to was the guy that started Cliff Bar. And I think his name is Gary Erickson, maybe. He wrote a good book also about, how he started, Cliff Bar. And it's another pretty inspirational sort of take on the outdoor industry and starting business and being passionate. And, I think some of the successful businesses in the outdoor industry and in the firearms industry as well started by really passionate founders that love what they do. Yeah. And, eventually you hit a home run, if you stick it out and you keep doing the basic blocking and tackling,
show up and grind through it every day.
Yeah, you can grow, a beautiful company, but you have to be in it for the right reasons, and it has to be, something that somebody wants to buy, but passionate people figure it out.
Well, I think all these things shifting around with Leaf and Lost Arrow and stuff, really, it's good for you. It's good for OTTE Gear. Puts you guys in a great position.
I smile because, I'm definitely a scrapper and I grind it out too, and I'm gritty. And so, I'm still doing it after 20 years. I'm still standing, and I've seen people come and go, and, company after company buying other competitors, and, they're falling into the same tar pits and sand traps, and I'm just like, smiling, and I'm still standing, slugging it out.
It's good.
Yeah. But directionally, I think we're definitely growing, and we want to keep producing really epic products. And I think, listening to the end user and talking to them and finding out what problems you can solve, much like our little adventure with the anoraks, man. It's like you saw a need, and, I got your passion. And, that's the kind of stuff that when it comes, my way, I definitely stop what I'm doing and I listen, because there's a bunch of gold and fairy dust coming my direction, and you got to be in a certain mindset to absorb it and take it in, because so many of these larger companies, they've got bean counters and so many layers of management that good ideas never trickle down into some of the, production stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it today at, we went by the Surefire booth. Like Surefire was my first consulting gig out of the military, and a lot of people don't know this, but I helped, the vampire technology was that was my design concept. And that came from me teaching a low-light class to Naval Special Warfare and some guys from Dev Group that were at Warcom that had transitioned over to Warcom. I'm not going to say his name, but he's kind of a famous dude in the industry. And he was on the Jessica Lynch rescue, and he went through my course, and it was all like white light employment CQB stuff. And he, because part of that was like my charter at Surefire, part of my contract was military relations and like consumer education on our product sets.
Right.
So my job was to go out there and train these guys and teach them how to use the tools.
Right.
And so I did that through a CQB, low light CQB class for white light employment. And what happened was he pulled me aside after the course, and he was like, hey, because it was a 5-day course, and he was like, hey, this was a really great course, and it was well run, and you did a great job, and your concepts are awesome, but like we're putting together a new SOP where we're just going to go straight, IR. We're like taking white lights off guns, and like we're not going to run white lights on guns anymore. And my mind was like blown. I was like, I thought that was stupid as fuck. And I was like, oh, okay, but I'm fucking not going to sit there and argue with it,
Is it still that way?
No.
They've gone back.
No. Yeah, they went back. They figured out in Iraq that like fast-paced urban fighting and CQB, you need fucking white lights on guns. So, but for a while, that's what their stance was. And so I took that information back to Surefire, and they were like, they started panicking because Naval Special Warfare was a huge customer, and they were buying literally tens of millions of dollars of lights a year to put on their weapon systems.
Right.
And so, I'm sitting in this room with like all the C-suite executives at Surefire, and they're like, oh, this, that, the other, and it just popped into my head while I'm sitting there listening to these guys like panic about how they're going to lose all these sales, and I was like, why don't we just build an IR light? And they like stopped, and they just looked at me like I had a dick growing out of my forehead. And the owner of Surefire, John Matthews, was like, okay, well, do you have some ideas around that? You've got some concepts? And I was like, yeah, I've got some ideas. I was like, we have this aviator light that, it's a 2-stage switch, does white light, then it does a color, and it's for aviation crews to like, sustain their night vision inside the cockpit, looking at things under red lens, and then for the air crew to jump out and do external, inspections on the aircraft with a white light.
Yeah.
And so I was like, we just changed the colored LEDs to IR LEDs.
Problem solved.
And so he's like, tomorrow morning, we're sitting down, we're having a design, we're going to brainstorm on this design. So I came into his office the next morning, we sat down, and and this is how John Matthews, he probably still does it. I mean, he's in his early, I think he's maybe creeping towards his 90s right now, still comes into the office every day. And he had this way of doing product development where he'd get a legal pad out, and he would just like take all these notes, and then he would take those notes and he would talk to a few different people, other subject matter experts besides me.
Yeah.
And he would get their opinions on things, and he would take those notes. And then if he decided he wanted to run that product, he would hand those notes over to the chief engineering team, and they would start working on it. And I think at that time it was Paul Kim. And Paul was there during all this. And I was like, hey, get me an aviator, put me IR LEDs in it, give me a ring mount, and I will go start doing testing on this. And so that's how it started.
Right.
And we tested through it, and I validated the concepts of like taking a white light and an IR light and putting them together.
Wow.
Fast forward through a development cycle, and I was, deploying to Afghanistan during all this, and then coming back from Afghanistan and giving them like combat T&E, and they came up with the M720V Vampire based off of my concept and my direction. And, you know, they didn't design it exactly how I would have, but they got it out and they got it done. And when they got it done, Naval Special Warfare came back to the table and they bought a $12.6 million contract for Vampire Lights. So I thought I was a made man. I'm like, fuck, dude.
Oh, no.
I just wrote my ticket in this industry. I will never, like, I'm like Joe Pesci and fucking Goodfellas up in this motherfucker. Like, nobody's going to ever fire me from Surefire. Wrong.
Dude, what happened?
One of the chief engineers who didn't like me because I was a fucking asshole to him during the development process because he thought he knew better than the end user who had to go shoot dudes with this piece of gear.
Yeah.
He was an engineer and thought he knew better on how to like set up the switching and what to do with it. And so him and I were constantly arguing during the development process. So he hated my guts. And so he started this rumor that I was going to sue the company for part of the award contract. And nobody asked me, you know, hey, is this true? Like just made the assumption. And they're like, yeah, we decided not to renew your contract. And so I got laid off.
After giving him a $12 million idea.
Yeah. It was my first consulting gig. And
wow.
I was happy making my they were paying me like $103,000 a year to come in and do these things yeah, but yeah, it's a
lesson learned.
Yeah, lesson learned.
So wow. Do you know where that engineer is today?
Oh no, I have no idea where he's at today. I know he's not at Surefire anymore. He hasn't been at Surefire for years because I've asked about him a couple times. But like, the more things like. You know, what's the old saying? The more they change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
So we went in there today, and they were like, you know, still like nobody in there has any idea who I am now, and you know, like none of the old people that I worked with work there anymore. Right. And so it's just they've grown into this big monster company, like you were saying, that like you should recognize, you know. You should recognize gold when somebody like lays a gold egg in your lap. You should recognize it. And so they continue to do, you know, crazy things and like looking at their marketing models and what they're doing now, like they've gone full circle. Like back in my day in the early 2000s, we knew like having a hotspot and a high output light that gets lots of candela to like so that you can see it under a magnified optic at distance and remove somebody's visual horizon very effectively in a CQB environment was where the direction we needed to go. Right. And after I left and other dudes got laid off at the company that had combat experience and development experience in the company, somebody got the bright idea to come up with this max vision beam technology, which like gives you this super floody light that has no hotspot. And it completely cuts off the balls on your max effective range on your light. And that's the development process that they've gone down for years and years and years. Well, now high output lights with a hotspot that you know, have lots of candela and lots of punch have come back to the table and they think that they've like rediscovered gold again. And I'm like, you stupid fucks just went in a complete circle. Yeah. You just took 20 years to go in a fucking circle.
You know, it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, I see this too on my side with the soft goods too. It's like the same mistakes keep getting played out over and over again because there's no continuity of, you know, there's no one there that remembers the past. So you get the new team comes in and they have no idea what the last team was doing or the team before, and there's no one keeping track of the history. So then they start redoing the same research and development that had already been taken care of decades before. And, you know, Eric Graves, to his credit, he turned me onto a book called, you know, Snafus and, you know, Jungle Warfare or something like that. I bought it a couple years ago. And it talks a lot about that, about how, you know, for example, the fabrics that we were using in Vietnam were the most awful fabrics for a tropical environment. And the North Vietnamese had better uniforms than us during that conflict because they were using this old school woven fabric that mosquito proboscis couldn't get through, so their guys weren't getting malaria, and it was keeping them cool and comfortable in a tropical environment. Meanwhile, we're using this really open poplin sort of fabric, which we had to soak in DEET to keep the bugs from getting in, and you know the proboscis could go right through it, and you know, because no one remembered the right fabrics to be using from earlier conflicts, and it's just like stupid shit that keeps getting rehashed over and over again. Yeah. And I think didn't a lot of other smaller upstart light companies kind of eat Surefire's lunch in a few different development projects when it came to the switches and some of the other design features. I don't know.
Yeah, they're kind of like their own worst enemy, where they just can't get the hell out of their own way, and they because they are, I don't know, they have this elitist attitude, like some companies get. They get this elitist attitude where they're like they don't like to listen to their customers because they think they know better.
Oh man.
And they stop listening to their customers, and then what happens is like the customers like complain enough that competitors in the market are like,
oh yeah.
I mean, it's the whole reason that HoloSun has become a fucking thing with optics. You got this Chi-Com communist fuckbag company that they're owned by, they have direct ties to the fucking PLA and the CCP. It's not an American company manufacturing things in China. It's a straight up fucking Chi-Com company using Americans and using our industry to do R&D for the PLA. And all they do is listen to what people want in the industry, and then they undercut everybody by manufacturing it at a super great price point. So guys are getting the cutting edge tech that they want at a fucking unbelievable price, and their company has exploded because of it.
Is there an American solution? We have good.
We have an American solution, but we have companies that don't listen to what American shooters and consumers want and are asking for because they think they know better, and so they don't do any type of new R&D or development or build the products that the customers are asking for.
Isn't that capitalism though? Isn't that a good thing?
I mean, it's not a good thing when you have like the most red-blooded patriotic industry in the country that's, super like, give me liberty or give me death fucking, and they're supporting a Chi-Com company. Like, go read fucking Stealth War, go read Unrestricted Warfare, and go read 100-Year Marathon, and they completely lay out their 100-year plan on how to completely subvert and destroy the U.S. without any type of war, like without any type of direct conflict.
Not shooting a bullet.
Without shooting a bullet.
Yeah.
And then this is one of their strategies. And like, what's the, like, I gotta be careful what I say here, but like we discovered some shit that went down a year ago. Was it a year ago? Where Chinese SOF sent a bunch of their dudes to come over here on student visas, graduated from, they went to college, graduated while they're like soft dudes, came over here, graduated from college, and then went to training with retired soft trainers in our industry and got trained. And then they also ripped off a bunch of our tech, like bought nods and bought a bunch of fucking sensitive items while they were here and took them back to China and helped a company in China develop a bunch of shit. And then like the internet's just like, we stumbled onto this like a year ago and like talked about it briefly a year ago on social media.
Yeah.
And like now the industry's just finding out about it again. But like that's what they're doing. They're sending soft guys over here to train with our veterans, and then those guys are going back and training their guys, and they're stealing tech and taking it back to China.
Right. Well, I mean, kind of a good plan, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have the resources and the time, you got to play catch up somehow, right?
Yeah.
You got to figure it out. I mean, never fight fair. Isn't that what the motto of some folks are?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say good for them, but, we got to step up our game to be able to catch that shit.
You're
That's
correct.
like the 9/11 hijackers, man. Yeah. They learned to fly planes in Florida.
Yes.
They didn't learn how to land them. They learned how to take them off.
Yeah, and they hijacked them with fucking box cutters.
Right. So. I'm like, I think because we are a capitalist country, we like to make money. And, if people are offering us money for the services we provide, that kind of blinds us to some of the, not so good side of, capitalism, where we're actually giving our playbook to folks that don't have our best interest.
No.
And so it's something we need to watch out for. And I don't know what the solution is. I mean, I think it starts with conversations about it. I mean, learning about what happened, finding out what we can do better to let it not happen again, because I think all of us in America want to see America succeed and go into the future and have a successful country for our kids and our grandkids. And solving these problems now is going to be an important thing to do. Otherwise, we're going to lose the 100-year war.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, and to be clear, like I don't like my best friend's Chinese. And fucking, I love Chinese food, and Chinese people are usually pretty fucking cool. Yeah. For the most part, but fuck their government. And I find usually, like, when I hang out in foreign countries with people, like, there's a group of Russians that I hang out with over in Australia that are really cool people, and they are awesome, and I don't judge them for what their government's doing. They're great people. And so, same thing with, the Chinese. I've met lots of Chinese people that are great, awesome,
Right.
awesome humans.
Right.
But like what their government's doing is bullshit.
I will say this though. I mean, I still think America is the dream factory, man.
It is.
I mean, we have so many problems, especially with our educational system. However, we're not robots, and as fucked up as it may be,
Yeah.
we still are creative, man. And that's our like special sauce is like we can create cool shit. I mean, if you look at what technology has been created by America over the last, or the West in the last 100 years versus Asian countries, be that Japan or China or Korea, besides the Betamax, I'm trying to think what else. And, gunpowder a couple thousand years ago.
Right.
But I'm like, what other technologies have come out of that system?
Yeah.
I mean, they're great at manufacturing it smaller, cheaper, faster, better. Okay, we can look at that. We can solve that problem. But who's coming out with the tech?
Well, that's why they're stealing.
We're still coming out with it. Right,
That's
exactly.
why they steal it. Is they're not.
Exactly.
They don't have a creative.
Exactly.
Their society, with the way it's structured and how everybody is so heavily monitored, really stifles their creative flow.
Thank God. People complain about the Chinese Communist Party, right? But I'm like, thank God, because if they unleashed the power of that 1.4 billion people, we would definitely be doomed, man.
Yeah.
But because they're so holding on so tight, it's restricting their creativity. It's restricting and throttling and governing that society. And thank God. Otherwise, we'd be in deep shit.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The world according to Todd and Brian. This has been a great podcast, man.
Yeah, man.
So
Yeah.
what do you want to close with? What kind of dad advice you got?
Dad advice.
In your Mr. Rogers sweater. What kind of good dad advice do you got?
Well, I will share this because I have 3 teenagers, and I'd like to take credit for it, but it was really my wife, and when we gave our kids phones, and we knew they're girls and dating and boys were starting to come up and stuff. We got petrified about dick pics and the internet and shit going around, and so the sage advice we gave our son was like, listen, if you're gonna do that shit, FaceTime it, man.
Right.
So there's
Or Snapchat.
There's no evidence of that dick pic, man.
Right.
It's just in and out.
Right.
And so I do feel bad for those guys because their whole world is documented with video, and they can't get away from it.
Yeah, the world's not
No
the same.
privacy.
It's not the same world that we grew up in, with no phones, no internet, no nothing.
I know.
I grew up with Penthouse magazines that I found in my grandpa's sink. My grandpa was like a Penthouse collecting. Like, he loved Penthouse.
Dude, he had good taste.
Yeah.
That was a good rag, man,
That
back
was.
in the day.
Yeah, Penthouse.
Bob Guccione, man.
Penthouse magazines. That's how I made it through life when I was young.
You know what I did with my old penthouses?
What'd you do?
So when I got married, I just had my 20th wedding.
You realize right now
anniversary.
there's people that are probably listening to this. They're like, "What the fuck is Penthouse?" It's a porn mag. In case you guys didn't know.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a porn
It was a
magazine.
classy one, too. It was like really great looking models and, very suggestive stuff. Some good articles, too. I think some racy stuff.
Yeah,
But
there's good writing in it.
so, I had a collection, as a young man, there was no internet.
Yeah.
So when I had my bachelor party up in Vermont, I took all of them up there and we had a big bonfire. We burned them.
Oh no.
I know.
Should've
All that
saved 'em.
paper.
You could have saved them. Like, then you could have showed your sons.
I know.
Be like, this is how we did dick pics back in the day, in magazines.
Well, I ran across all my old uncle's stashes too back in their day. I found all their old Playboys from like the
Nice.
60s and stuff. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, Playboy, another great publication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that even around anymore?
I don't know. I think they are, aren't they? They still publish these mags or no? No.
It's digital, but
Yeah.
they're around. Yeah.
I'm sure it's like I'd have to research. You could probably get on Playboy and like do a subscription and like get access to a portal where you could like. I'm sure it's like OnlyFans or some shit where you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just for a while where they're like, do nudes, and because we're a tasteful magazine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Why would they stop doing nudes? I'm like,
Stupid.
you invented the nude.
We're not making coke anymore.
Right, exactly. It was so idiotic.
Dumb.
Dumb idea.
Okay,
Fairy.
so good dad advice. Don't take dick pics and send them to anybody.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
FaceTime it.
Yeah.
It's great being here, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in. This was a great conversation. This was one of probably my favorite podcasts. That
Come
I've done.
on, man. Seriously?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's good catching up with a friend from industry that I have history with, and then it's also like you're a good conversationalist. So it's almost
thanks.
like you've been around for a while and lived some life and done some things.
Yeah. I don't think I could have done this 20 years ago when I was just young and dumb. Just getting into this. No way, man.
Yeah.
I got the battle scars and it's a show for it.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, I've got one last question. Have you seen anything at the show that you were like, wow, that's rad?
I wish we did this podcast tomorrow because that's when I'm walking the floor.
well,
Tomorrow
sure.
morning, I'm walking the floor. Have I seen anything? I'm trying to think. Let's see. I have seen a little bit of stuff. Yeah, honestly, I've been so in my booth, in my little microcosm. My blinders are on. Grizz, am I missing something? Have you heard anything?
Are you guys
too?
walking? You guys walking the show? Tomorrow?
Oh, you know what we did see? That was hilarious. So you know that Instagram influencer, her name is Haley Luan.
Yeah.
So
Psyop.
Psyops.
I always fucking see her and I'm like, you're such a fucking psyop. I got pictures with her last year. I have her cell phone number. I just never fucking call her.
So some of the guys that are working our booth this year, they're awesome, man. They created a Target with her on it. They went to her Instagram page, got a photograph of her wearing like a ski sweater, holding a picture. It had been like her family. They took the family photograph out, put like a Reaper drone in it over Manhattan. Oh. She's holding it like this, and they put like a Target silhouette over her.
Oh, man.
Because half the industry loves her.
Yeah.
They'll pin this up on their wall and, spank off to it. The other half hates her. They will actually use it as a target.
They'll actually
and
shoot it, yeah.
Happily shooting her face out. So, yeah. And she's in on the joke, too. We let her know about it. So it's pretty funny. We have one hanging in our booth right now if you want to come take a look at it tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see it tomorrow.
It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
I'll show you a picture I have on my phone, too.
I'm going to text her and be like, come fucking meet me at the OTTE booth and like, let's get a picture of this. I want to get a picture with you at this fucking Target.
Do it, man. Do it.
Well, fuck, man. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Where can people find you?
Come find us at SHOT Show 2024, booth number 32203, or, of course, the World Wide Web, OTTEGear.com. And if you see the word spelt out, OTTE, and you wonder how to pronounce it, it rhymes with naughty. Just remember that.
OTTE Gear.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. And are you going to like, are we going to like chat about getting a discount code for my listeners or what?
Oh, we can totally do that. How do you do it? Do you just, we can do...
You'll have to set it up on the back end of your website and then give it to me, and then I'll put it out. Because this episode you're probably a few weeks out on this episode, so I got to record the intro and outro, and then I'll drop the discount code in and like push some sales.
I love it. I love it, man. We'll do it.
Okay. I'll talk to you about it afterwards.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Let's get the fuck out of here.
All right, man.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Lone Element Podcast. We'll check you out on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.